Entering our second season of Blood Time, we want to thank not only our phenomenal and remarkable individuals that were our guests, but also the support, the incredible support that we have had throughout the community, not only locally, but nationally. What you can absolutely put to bed as guaranteed the second season of Blood Time are more remarkable individuals, more transformative stories, and more Blood Time moments. Please give a listen to the second season, for we are all blood. Coach Cimarroni here. Love to all. I want to thank Serve Pro of Beechwood, our newest sponsor, and Jack Coslin, the owner. They serve all of Northeast Ohio, not just Beechwood. They specialize in disaster cleanup that leaves your home or office like new, like it never happened. Flood and water damage, fire, mold, and they say even blood and guts. Not just any Serve Pro. Seek out Serve Pro of Beechwood. That's Serve Pro Beechwood, Shaker Heights, ClevelandHeights.com, 216-464-4498. Operated by a former All-State wrestler from Beechwood, we love Serve Pro of Beechwood. Hey, this is Coach Cimarroni with Blood Time. We have a phenomenal episode coming up with an amazing wrestler from the University of Michigan. This gentleman had an incredible match his senior year with an incredible athlete from Arizona State, Dan St. John. We have in studio today via phone Joe Pantaleo. Joe, how are you, my man?
Good, Pete. How yourself?
I'm good. I watched that match on YouTube again, man. What two warriors you guys were! Incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that was a great match. Dan and I had faced each other a couple times in college prior to that match. The year before in the quarterfinals.
Yep.
And then in the semifinals of Vegas that year. And then we wrestled twice in freestyle prior to that. So Dan made improvements. I beat him at Vegas 11-1, and then 4-3 in the quarterfinals, and then he got me probably when it counted the most in the finals of the NCAAs.
Well, no matter what, you got something in history that's incredible. So second in the nation's not too bad, but I know that's not something that you want to. You'd rather be a national champ, I'm sure.
Well, that was my second time in the finals, and I lost the year before to Ralph Cole. And so for me, it's been almost 30 years.
Yeah.
I'll get over it sometime.
I get it. I'm telling you, man, I got a lot of buddies that took second in the state that, and that's 30, 35, 40 years ago, and they're still like, oh my God, I can't even think about it. So I get it. But it does push you to do other things that are great, and you're doing some great things. But you did some great things right after school. You ended up at Michigan State and transformed that program. Talk a little bit about the Michigan State transformation.
After my years at Michigan, I had Mark Schwella, Dale Bard, and Steve Frazier there, and Joe Wells was probably one of the best in there as an assistant coach. But then I went for a year and a half out at the University of Iowa.
Right.
And Dan Gable he has a coaching tree that's, unprecedented. But I also picked up Jimmy Zaleski and how he worked with the guys one-on-one. So when I came to Michigan State, was hired by Tom, my philosophy was that of Jimmy's. I would go in the room, and from 7 in the morning until usually 10:30, 11, I was working on one-on-one with the guys. There was a lot of work that needed to be done there. I think the year before in the 92 Nationals, Michigan State finished dead last. I think they were in 64th place. And we had good raw talent. We also had Dave Dean in the room.
Right.
So as assistants, and through hard work that the guys put in, the examples that Dave, Tom, and I set, we were able to turn the program around. In a short 3 years, we went from 64th to 3rd in the country.
Jeez.
And second in the Big Ten to Iowa, of course. But yeah, we made a nice turn, and then even the next year, we had 5 All-Americans in '95, including national champ Calvin and Dan Wernsberger in the finals. But the following year, we came back with 5 new All-Americans. guys like Brian Piccolo, who was a walk-on, Eric Harvey, Brian Bolton, Joe Morsetti. One of the greatest stories I love telling that story of perseverance for Joe. And then David Morgan. David was a transfer from Oregon State, redshirt behind Calvin.
Yep.
And, was a 3-time All-American for us, 3-time Big Champ.
That's incredible. Tell that transformative story.
Joe Morsetti came from Florida, and he was there before I got there. He finished 3rd in the Florida States.
Yep.
He lived a pretty rough life.
Okay.
I want to say in his sophomore year in high school, he got shot. He was, in the streets on a drive-by shooting and got shot.
Yep.
So he finished 3rd in the States. And when I got there, he was a 167-pounder. Joe was a big, powerful individual.
Right.
But, big muscles tired quickly.
Yes.
And he didn't understand how to wrestle through a whole match. And so, he would have some wins or be ahead in matches and then just kind of fall apart because of conditioning. Right. And it was more than just the physical aspects of conditioning. It was more mental with him. So what we did is we worked really close, one-on-one, not just the physical part of that, the extra workouts there, but talking about the mental part of that. And the transformation that he made from understanding how to wrestle through a complete match.
Yeah.
We developed the physical, but the mental part of that, he broke through a lot of barriers to be able to wrestle a full match. That was a lot to do with Dave Dean and myself because we were really hands-on with him. And so, he ended up graduating, and now he's a police officer down in North Carolina. And has a wonderful family and does a great job. Well,
that was his blood time moment.
Yes.
Thanks to Coach Joe. I mean, honestly, and that's that's why I did this podcast, Joe. The beauty of that is just incredible, right? Now, we don't even know who he has affected in a positive way, let alone his kids,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from a life standpoint, and then you got guys that were in our room like Dan Wernsberger, who's now the head coach at Bucknell and doing great things there. And
sure.
Dave Morgan, like I mentioned earlier, he runs a youth program here in Michigan too. And so, that legacy continues on. And that's probably one of we had great success at Michigan State.
Right.
But what I feel most proud about is the legacy that we left and the thing that those guys have carried on in their new life or career.
Well, that's what I tell the young men I coach, bad and good things do not happen in a vacuum. They expand, and that sometimes they'll come around and bite you, but always do good, always do great things and put those great philosophies into their brains and their hearts and then spread it. And I think that's what you're talking about at Michigan State and also maybe at Liberty too, correct?
Yeah, so Liberty was a interesting. After Michigan State, I went to the high school level,
right?
Just because I wasn't making any money at Michigan State.
Right, you got to make some money. Yeah, you can't do it for love.
At that time.
Yep.
So then I took a job in Michigan, coaching high school at Grosse Pointe. I ended up getting a job, an opportunity as assistant coach at Liberty.
Okay.
And they had just restarted the program from Title IX that was cut in the 90s. And Jesse Castro and I just got along great. And Jesse, he said, look, the room is yours.
Okay.
So, Jesse handled all the important things that a head coach handles, and he turned the technique and the practice schedule over to me. And so
that's a real smart head coach. Believe me when I tell you, that's a real smart head coach to do that.
Well, Jesse, he had a lot of faith and confidence in me.
Sure.
And helped me grow spiritually as well as a coach. And he was a great mentor. So, Liberty was, I think it was the beginning of our second year. First year, we did a great job. Jesse had won the East Regional, I think it was, or the Southern Regional.
Okay.
A number of different years. The first 3 years he was there. We won it for 2 more years there. But the feather in our cap were two things. The first was, the first year there, we had a horrible outing up in Binghamton, first term of the year.
Okay.
We just, and my process was, this is a process, guys. It starts with the mindset, and then the physical part of that would come along.
Right.
And I was kind of that grinder, weird guy down kind of wrestler. So that's how we were mentality training. And then the following week, we had a real good, tough week of practice.
Okay.
The following week, we went to University of Penn and won the tournament there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing.
What year was that?
I want to say it was in the fall of 2009. So in the 2009 fall, we won the Penn University of Penn's tournament, which was had a lot of good teams in it. So, and then in 2010, the fall of 2010, we started the year out with a quad up at Maryland.
Okay.
And we won our first duel. I can't remember who that was against. But our second duel meeting was West Virginia.
Yes.
And West Virginia had lost to Maryland in the first round.
Okay.
And prior to wrestling Maryland, the week prior, I looked at their lineup and I looked at our lineup and I said to Coach, I think we can beat them. He's like, really? I go, yeah.
Yeah.
I go, I really think we can beat them. We've got a little bit more experience than they do. And I just think we match up well. Well, we lost a close match to West Virginia. Then we wrestled Maryland, and lo and behold, we split with them 5-5 the matches and won because we had more bonus points. And one of the greatest things was this: the finals heavyweight match. Spencer Myers was a freshman. He ended up being a 3-time All-American for Maryland at heavyweight.
Okay.
And our heavyweight by the name was Josh Peltier, came from Maine. I told Josh before he went out there wrestle, I said, look, this guy's a true freshman. You're in your 4th year. You're bigger. You're stronger. Just go out and wrestle.
Right.
And he sure enough did that and ended up beating Spencer, who later on that year became an All-American.
Crazy. That's crazy. So, that's great coaching, my man. Great coaching.
It's an all-around process.
Sure.
And
of course.
We were fortunate that Jesse, did what he did. I did what I did. And we worked well together.
You instilled belief in them in the process, and also in your own confidence in them. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we there was a lot of getting them to buy in and to believe in themselves because,
sure.
They were like, okay, I was 3rd in the high school, or I was a 1-time state champ from Maine, let's say.
Right.
Can I really compete at this level? The great thing about that was I talked about Joe Morsetti and I talked about Brian Piccolo. And, who was from Michigan State, too. Brian was a Big Ten champ and 2-time All-American, and he was a walk-on. He never even placed in the high school state tournament.
Well,
and here he is winning the Big Ten title.
That is an incredible story because that's really hard to do. But if you got the right...
Dave Dean owes, that was a lot of Dave Dean.
Yeah.
He really took Brian under his wing.
What a name, Brian Piccolo, right? One of the all-time great heroes, of the Chicago Bears and the NFL, with an amazing story back in the day.
Yeah, that wasn't lost. Trust me, we talked about that all the time.
Sure. Obviously you don't want to have it end up like our other Brian Piccolo, but but what a story, what an inspiration. And
yeah, so Tate Piccolo was the number one, or is the number one recruit in the country, who just won Who's Number One.
Okay.
And he signed with Oklahoma.
Okay.
So, and then I think Brian's daughter, too, is a track star at Oklahoma. Wow. He had another son that just transferred from Cornell back to Oklahoma.
Wow. So the Sooners have got the Piccolos. I love it.
Yeah. He's a police officer in Norman. So I think that kind of helped a little bit.
That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Well, it's an amazing thing, that what coaching can do and what can become of that in the next generation after a great coach really inspires that athlete and what they can do with it, not only in their family, as you just described with the Piccolo family, but also if they become a coach or they become a businessman or a business person or a businesswoman or a leader in any of their other chosen fields of civic responsibility, the medical field, higher education, law enforcement, the military, whatever it is. And you have had some really nice success in the business world at America's Back Office. I want to talk a little bit about that and how you've transferred what you learned, not only in our great sport, but also as a coach, and now are taking it to the business world.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I was really fortunate. When Liberty ended up dropping their program, they took care of us and offered us a very nice severance package.
Right.
And so I took that and I basically became a walk-on in the business world, the public sector coaching or teaching. So I was a walk-on. I had resources from Liberty.
Sure.
Didn't know anything about the industry. My friend owned the company, and I said, look, I've got 1 year of, you don't have to pay me. Just teach me. And so, he said, okay. And so I went through some training and just, the first year was rough.
Right.
You were trying to figure out, you're making these phone calls, 200 phone calls a day, and you're getting told no probably 90% of the time.
Right.
And, it becomes a wearing process. But then I related that to the grind of working out with Steve Frazier.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
it was working out with Steve Frazier, especially when we wrestled for 2 hours straight.
Sure.
And so I just related that. I related that to, my new endeavor. And it was a matter of, okay, I've been through this from a wrestling standpoint. How
Right.
can I transfer this to this business world?
And I want to talk about that, Joe. We're going to take a break. And after the break, we're going to come back and really talk about that, because I've hired so many wrestlers and their work ethic, but more importantly, their creativity in having to figure out how to beat guys, and their solution-oriented situations are great. So we'll come back to that right after this. Coach Cimarroni for Blood Time. We'll be right back. This is Coach Cimarroni for Next Level Continuing Education. Next Level brings unique education to real estate professionals and real estate investors on how to get money effectively and efficiently into real estate investments. Next Level Continuing Education has ditched the traditional continuing education platform. Gone are the days of listening to boring content in a stuffy classroom setting. Come jump on a Zoom call whenever you find it comfortable and learn how to expand your real estate portfolio. Next Level CE brings unique content across Ohio and the Midwest to teach real estate investors how to become their own bank using the infinite banking concept to acquire more properties quickly. Call Ryan M. Miller, the CE specialist, at 330-933-8231, or click on the link in our show notes. That's Ryan M. Miller, CE specialist, 330-933-8231, or our show notes. The link is where you go. Thank you.
Defense Soap at defensesoap.com. In the midst of our current health crisis, we at Blood Time want to thank Guy and Gus Seiko and the team at Defense Soap as a beacon of our protection. Body wipes, skin cleansers, bars of soap, shower gels, and disinfectant tablets. All this and more, as Defense Soap is on the front line of our protection. Thanks to the Seiko family and their team at Defense Soap. Check them out for all your protection needs during these precarious times. Defense Soap at defensesoap.com.
And we're back. This is Coach Cimarroni with Joe Pantaleo. Joe, how are you, man?
Good, Coach.
Good. We were talking about how you transferred that grind, that incredible work ethic, but also that creativity from the wrestling match, Matt, and from coaching to the business world. Expound a little bit about that, and how did that click in? How did that aha moment occur? And then all of a sudden you started to become successful from that grind.
Yeah, so, what I do at America's Back Office is human resources. I'm a sales professional for an HR outsource company, and we handle human resources for small to medium-sized businesses.
Sure.
So when I first, like I said before, when I first got into this, I really didn't, not that I didn't understand it, but I didn't know the nuances. Like working out with Steve Frazier, it's a whole nother level.
Yep.
And so you had to problem solve on how to build that endurance.
Yes.
And that's the way I looked at making phone calls.
Okay.
Because this was a grind that I went through over and over again with Steve Frazier.
Right.
And then from there, you just say, okay, what needs to be better? So when I came into college as a freshman, I had a great inside head single leg.
Okay.
right? So you're single.
Yep.
But that just didn't always work. So I had to develop a high crotch to the opposite side.
Yep.
And then a front headlock.
Yep.
Well, I had to transfer that into the business world.
Okay.
So I started developing new technique, where I was weak. And so, I was weak in the technical fields. So I went into developing the email marketing campaign. I did the cold calling, which was the base. And then I went into email marketing.
Okay.
And then I kept adding skills just like I did in the wrestling room.
Right.
And because of that, I've now been able to have a pretty successful profession. It took me about 3 years
Right.
of constant staying in there with that perseverance to develop that. And like I like to say now, my company is the best kept secret in the HR industry. But it took me a while to communicate that and get that out to potential clients.
Right. No, I get that a lot. I mean, when I started in the business world, I didn't know a P&L from P&E. So,
Yeah, right.
And I forced myself to get good, and I really know the P&L. I know my way around a P&L very well. And every line item that occurs in it, valuation, EBITDA, all those wonderful things that you need to know in the business world, because I was a creative guy. I wanted to create the great commercials or create the great article or create the great PR campaign, as opposed to understand the nuances of business. But as a good coach, you have to know your people. You have to know your foundations of being an administrator, as well as a PR agent, as well as an economist, as well as an accountant. You need to know all those things.
Peter, absolutely. And, part of what my business is, my business model, while I work for a company, I'm my own little entrepreneurship.
Love it.
And, so I even developed a little brand called Joe the HR guy.
Love it.
And so I went from really knowing very little about what we did when I first came to ABO in 2011.
Sure.
To understanding work count, payroll processing,
right.
governmental compliance,
yep.
Everything that dealt with benefits, especially right. benefits administration. So I had to become an expert in all those areas. And once I became that expert, I again went and branded myself, Joe, your HR guy. And that was
right.
kind of funny, because where I got that from was a client. I would go in and drop off payroll and talk to them and have an update report. And they would, as I was walking in, and they go, it's Joe, our HR guy.
Yes.
And I was like,
yes.
I like that.
Well, you forged that, literally forged that. And I was introduced to you by Hesh Sagafi, who's literally forged himself into the premier mortgage guy, in Northeast Ohio, if not Ohio, just through sheer determination, will, and work ethic, and just outworking people and saying, I'm going to be the best I can be in that industry.
Yeah, you want to talk about coaching, and Hesh always says that. And, Hesh is a great guy and
right.
A great businessman. And he was a guy that, was moderate to successful in college, but
sure.
he was around John Smith, and he saw what that work ethic looked like,
right.
and that mentality looked like. And so, he carries that on in his business, and he does train his people to have that same mentality.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
And that's the development that, I've developed there, along with Mike Amina, another one.
And his wonderful sons, right? And his wonderful, incredible sons.
Yeah. And, again, Mike and I were roommates.
Okay.
But his sons have done a great job, just like my nephew joined them up in Michigan.
Yep.
But it was more about Mike's business acumen now.
Yes.
He's an incredible businessman.
Yes.
And we bounce things off each other all the time. Him and I are like, I wouldn't say mentors, but from a professional standpoint, we have in-depth conversations. It's kind of like, when we were wrestlers at Michigan.
Right.
After practice, we'd sit and talk, whether it was in the sauna or prior to practice or while we were drilling with each other. Hey, what's working? How are you doing this? What's
right.
working well for you? And it's important to have those individuals in your life when you do it when you're working in the business world.
Yeah, I mean, it's your board of advisors. It's the mastermind. Dale Carnegie says it best. The mastermind group, 6 minds that are brilliant are better than 1 mind that's brilliant, and you could bounce different ideas. Plus, Mike may look at something a little differently than you do.
Absolutely.
You may look, same, and vice versa, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, that aha moment again. So maybe that's part of your blood time moment is that Mike Amin is part of a micro blood time moment, if you will.
Yeah, he is, and another one is for me is my wife.
Awesome.
Who actually, when you said Dale Carnegie, she received the highest award that you could get in the Dale Carnegie training program.
Wow.
And she does a great job from a business standpoint and works close with me.
Okay.
And is another source of being that fellow athlete, if you will, and bouncing conversations off of and ideas off of. And
sure.
And so I'm quite lucky and fortunate to have these kind of people in my life.
Well, let's get her name out there. What's her name?
My wife is Diana Jewel Pantaleo.
Well, we love Diana Jewel because she supports Joe. That's fantastic. And so Joe, I love it. So Joe, tell us, who was the most instrumental in your young development as a coach or as maybe a parent? Who was that blood time moment that said to Joe, you could do something greater than you're thinking you can do?
Well, I think it moves through different areas of my life.
Okay.
From a wrestling and family standpoint, it was my mom and dad, and then my brothers. And, I came from a family much like Mike Amin. I had 8 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
And Mike Amin and I grew up a mile and a half from each other and actually wrestled each other in high school.
I'll be darned.
So, I had 2 older brothers that wrestled, and they were very influential in my life.
Sure.
But I had a great support mechanism with my mom and dad. I would say those 2 were along with my brothers was the motivation, or the ones that believed in me even before I did. And helped encourage me to reach those levels in high school. In college, I got an opportunity to wrestle for Dale Barr at the University of Michigan.
Right.
But it was really Joe Wells and Steve Frazier that on the day-to-day that I worked with that helped instilled in me the success model to be successful in college wrestling. And so I was quite fortunate to have those individuals. I would say from a coaching college standpoint, having Dan Gable watching, excellence at work there during probably one of his, greatest teams.
Yes.
And understanding how to do that. And then, like I said, Jimmy Zaleski, and understanding, hey, what it took to be an assistant to have an outstanding program. So I modeled myself after them. And then finally it was Jesse Castro, because it was more than about wrestling. It was about your faith walk.
Love it.
And Jesse was a great mentor along those lines for me.
Mm-hmm.
And now finally, it's my wife.
Do you remember any conversation, any words of wisdom that were said to you, or words of love, or words of transformation that were said to you by someone that just made you think a little differently, a little bit more evolved thought?
There was, Steve Frazier was great at that.
Okay.
We would have, after practices, we had different, we'd go sit in the sauna back when you could use a sauna.
Yep. And
we just sit in there and recover from the day's practice. And Steve was always really good at building yourself up, up. The one other guy that I failed to mention was a guy by the name of Mark Johnson.
Okay.
Who was a 2-time national runner-up at Michigan, to Chris Campbell, and then 1980 Olympian. When I was on the junior world team in '87 ESPAR world team, he was the coach for that.
Right.
And I was coming in for a lifting workout. My shoulder was a little sore.
Okay.
And I said to him, I said, Mark, my shoulder's a little sore. I don't think I'm going to be able to lift today.
Right.
And he looked at me and he says, Joe, just do the best you can. He goes, just do what you can.
Yeah.
And it really hit me. And then, we talked a lot about wrestling the Russians, and he said, don't worry about, just go out and wrestle and get a pace in.
Right.
So in the finals of the World Championships that year, I was wrestling a Russian in the finals, and he was kicking my butt. It was 4-1, come into the halftime, or 1-minute break.
Yes.
And Mark said to me as I'm sitting down in the chair, and he's rubbing my arms, him and John Azevedo, and Mark looked at me and he said, "We've got him right where we want him."
Oh, my.
And I'm losing 4-1. And I was like, yeah, you're right, because he's going to get tired this period.
There you go.
And sure enough, with 11 seconds left to go, I tied it up and then won in overtime.
We got him right where we want him. I just love that. That is priceless. And you know what? All of a sudden, it clicked in your head. You're going, you're right. I got this guy. And
Yeah.
what did you do? You took him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when sometimes, you feel a little dejected because of,
course.
the total sales and stuff like that, you're maybe not feeling it that day.
Yep.
You do sit there and you go, just do what you can today.
Yes.
Don't give up on the workout. Just do what you can.
Yes.
And, those things just kind of resonate in my ears and in my head constantly.
Yeah, I always do mind games to myself. Even at 63 years old, Joe, I said, you know what? I remember how much I busted ass in my 30s and 40s and even 50s. Let me do it harder and more and incredibly as far as content and volume now in my 60s. And I made that determination and that commitment when I turned 60. I said, I'm going to work harder, smarter, faster, more content, be undeniable. And that's why this podcast exists. Because I turned 60, I said, I've got to bring this brilliant content, these brilliant people, these remarkable stories to the public at large, come what may. And this is what I'm loving from you, is you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, and it as we get older, we sit there and you say, what is my legacy now?
Right.
And this podcast is something along the lines. The content is very important and stuff like that, but it's a greater legacy than even that, in my opinion. That
right.
You're leaving. It's not too late to start something.
Correct.
Is one of those things.
Yep.
And then what you're doing for the sport of wrestling and in the business world.
Thank you.
Yep. Those are things that people don't see, but
right.
yet are very important to what we're removing in the wrestling world and in business.
I couldn't agree with you more. And maybe Jesse was a proponent of this, but I preach do good always. Not 99% of the time, always. If you are even thinking about doing something that's not great, that your mother looking over your shoulder wouldn't approve, don't do it. Leave that money on the table, right?
Well, like I said too, the other for me that is just do the best you can right now.
Right.
And sometimes that's more than a lot of people, and sometimes it's not. But you're doing something and moving forward.
I love it. Well, Joe, you've been very inspirational. I love your aura. It just comes through the phone. I wish I could see you face to face. We're very appreciative that you have shared these moments with us, Joe. And
it's been my pleasure.
Yeah, and it's my pleasure as well. And I ask all my guests now during this time of the pandemic to leave our audience with some words of courage and encouragement to take with them as they move forward.
Wow, that's something by Joe Pantaleo here. I would say, have faith.
Okay.
You can't live life for yourself, and you have to live your life on a higher plane.
Okay.
And for me, that's my faith in God.
Love it.
And so you have to have something greater than yourself.
Okay.
And that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing I would say, I would echo Mark Johnson's words to me.
Okay.
Do as much as you can.
Wow.
And, because that's always telling you you're doing something, even when you don't feel good about it.
Right.
You're hurt, anything along those lines.
Right.
Just do as much as you can that day, and then try to do a little bit more, the next day.
Sure.
And, that was what I would say. Have your faith and trust, and not here on this earth, not here in what you do, but in God.
Okay.
And then do a little bit more or just do what you can that day, and then try to do more the next.
I love that. Those are beautiful words, Joe. And I just love what you stand for, and I love your story. Hey, HR Joe, keep bringing it, baby.
Well, thank you for doing this podcast and developing this, and then also thank you for asking me to be part of it.
Well, we love your philosophy, and we love your heart, and We thank you for being on, Joe. So stay in touch, okay?
Absolutely, will do, Pete. Thanks a lot for having me on again.
You got it. We'll be back to you soon. And this is Coach Cimarroni for Blood Time. Love to all.
Hi, this is Maverick Peters for the Blood Time Podcast. Just want to thank Mr. Jim Griffiths over at Bearden's. Bearden's has been serving steak burgers since 1948. They are home of the original peanut butter burger. Everything is 100% fresh, never frozen beef. They serve hand-cut onion rings, and they are a local top 10 shakes winner. Thank you again to Jim Griffiths over at Bearden's. Check them out for more at Beardens, BEARDENS.com. Thank you.
I want to leave you with this thought of the day. Walking through this world, luggage is not required. It is up to you.
Hi, this is Mike Amin, and I want to give a shout out to Blood Time Podcast. Check out more at www.maverickpodcasting.com. Happy New Year, everyone.